What is up, my friends? It is Wednesday, and you're very welcome along to tonight's late night agenda. Tonight, we're going to be discussing the future of Alisson Becker. We're again, of course, going to be speaking about the managerial situation, as the Alonso situation might have a little twist in it. We're also going to discuss the futures of a couple of other Liverpool players like Curtis Jones. We'll be looking at the possibilities in the transfer market, and of course, lots and lots more over the next 2 hours or so. It is your show as always, my friends, so you know what to do. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and we'll do our best to get to them as quickly as we can. The first poll question that I do have for you guys tonight is around the future of Alisson Becker. Lots of reports again today coming out of Italy suggesting that a move could be on the cards for him and Juventus, and I want to just ask, do you think that Alisson will leave this summer? So lots to get through there, as I mentioned. We'll also be discussing the future of Alexis McAllister tonight, the futures of Richard Hughes, Michael Edwards, of course, as well, and whatever it is that you guys would like to discuss. As I mentioned a moment ago, it is your show. Right, the guy, how are you, bro? Said, is now the time for FSG to sell? Need a new CEO, director of football, and new players. Legends leaving, manager fans want gone. Multi-club operation plan shelved, and is their head in it? Look, it's a really valid question, and one that I think we're all scratching around for answers for. I'm not sure whether they are looking to selling or not. There's certainly no indications that it's imminent that they look to sell, but like you've said, there is a lot of uncertainty there, isn't there, around the director of football, stuff like that, the future of the squad and the outgoing leadership players, which of course is another topic we're going to discuss tonight. Virgil's been speaking about the leadership group a little bit as well. Here's a really mad one for you, and I can't believe I'm actually saying this. Nothing to do with Liverpool, but Footy Accumulators, quoting Alex Crook, said that Sunderland are considering replacing Regis Lebris if they miss out on Europe. That is, I mean, that's a mad standard that Sunderland are looking to hold their manager to. First season up in the Prem, they're doing really, really well, and they're thinking about firing him if they don't get Europe. I mean, must be mad. Must be mad having a club that withholds some standards. Now, I'm sure you're aware of this, but the Chelsea manager, and now former Chelsea manager, Lemar Senior, has been fired. So that's been done. So that is added to the intrigue around the Alonso situation, because he is one of the coaches on their list. Now, what I can't tell you is if Alonso has any interest in it or not. ITK Space, formerly Bayern Space, has been posting about this, and I'm going to read you out in a few moments exactly what Dave said around the Alonso situation. They're having a quick look at the odds around Chelsea's managerial race. You don't see Xabi Alonso's name at the top of that list, but rest assured they will be inquiring about Alonso. Andoni Iraola is another name mentioned there as well, of course, and there's a couple of other names in and around the Chelsea mix. But again, my only concern about this from a Liverpool perspective is Alonso. So yeah, look, tonight loads to get through. Again, there's a lot in the media saying that the manager is going to stay, they're going to back him. You don't need me to rinse and repeat the same stories to you that you've seen for the last few weeks. You know, every day there's a new version of it. So let's get stuck into some of the news then. Let's get going with... Let's have a talk about the goalkeeper situation, actually, because Sky Sports News has said that Alisson and Georgie, obviously both absent from training today. So as it stands, Freddie Woodman is expected to start against Palace. But, of course, James Pearce the other night said that there is an outside chance Alisson may train a little bit later on in the week. Keane said not too bothered about Chelsea and United being interested. I'm more concerned if Alonso wants to move. That's it, exactly. Same as me, Keane. You know, I would absolutely expect clubs to look at somebody like Alonso. But what we don't know, mate, and I guess the big question is, what would be of interest to Xabi Alonso? So this coming in from Anfield Sector, they posted, quoting at 365 Scores, to say, Juventus sporting director on the rumours about Mohamed Salah being linked to Juventus had this to say: what's been circulated about negotiations to sign Mohamed Salah to Juventus is not true. At the moment, there is nothing regarding that. I guess the key words in that sentence there are at the moment, right? Because at the moment, there's nothing there. So let me read you out what is now ITK Space, formerly Bayern Space, had to say about the Alonso situation. Again, it's rather wordy, but bear with me and we'll do our best to get through it for you. So let me just read this out here and then we'll go from there. So it said, behind the scenes, new developments continue to emerge in the case of Xabi Alonso and Liverpool, with a subtle shift in tone from his side. Patience is still there, but not without limits, as there's a growing sense that while the process is being respected, the delays are becoming slightly harder to understand, especially since those key elements have already been discussed and the situation has been in an advanced stage for some time. As I have consistently reported, planning considerations on Alonso's side are gradually becoming more relevant as serious alternative interest continues to exist, while internal discussions at Liverpool's ownership level are delaying the timing of the final step. Even though the depth of prior talks stand as clear advance of how the groundwork is already being done, the process remains at its final stage, contrary to what some club-aligned briefings continue to publicly suggest. So let's just break down that first paragraph there. So they're saying that still, despite Liverpool briefing the media far and wide, that those conversations with Alonso and his representatives are still happening behind the scenes. Goes on to say, I've previously revealed that Liverpool's senior leadership, including Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards, moved early and decisively, holding detailed direct conversations with Alonso that went far beyond the normal interest. These talks covered sporting structure, long-term squad planning, coaching autonomy and overall strategic alignment, while his agent, Iñaki Ibanez, played a key role in shaping this framework of a potential agreement, leading to further high-profile interactions involving Linda Pudici Henry and representatives of iDub Global, with confirmations from Leverkusen circles closely connected to the agency, reinforcing that the major groundwork, both sporting and contractual, had effectively been completed, leaving only the final approval the remaining step. The current situation now rests entirely with the ownership, specifically John W. Henry, principal owner of Liverpool through Fenway Sports Group, who remains in the final decision maker at this stage. The only factor delaying full completion, Alonso and his assistant, are fully aware of the internal dynamic, and as mentioned in my previous reports, there's already been internal preparation on their side for a possible transition towards the final stretch of the season, including early planning around staff integration and squad structure. We still have more to read though, so stick with me. Nevertheless, there is still an understanding towards Liverpool's decision to conclude with Arne Slot the campaign, yet the gap between the depth of prior discussions and the absence of a definitive green light is becoming increasingly noticeable. Confidence remains high, but the longer the decision takes, the more it actually introduces a degree of tension. In the background, alternative pathways remain active, with Manchester City continued to position themselves as the most credible alternative should Liverpool not finalise the process. Last December, I was the first to reveal this ITK space, not me. Last December, I was the first to reveal that Alonso's release structure at Leverkusen was specifically designed to cover clubs he played for, namely Real Madrid, Liverpool and Bayern Munich, while notably also including Manchester City as the only club on the list that he never represented as a player, a reflection of his long-standing admiration and connection to Pep Guardiola. This connection dates back to his time playing under Guardiola at Bayern Munich and was further strengthened during a period where Alonso spent several days at the Etihad campus observing his methods that was effectively an internal internship. I can also exclusively reveal that the recent contract from Chelsea FC has taken place in the past few days as they quietly reassess their managerial situation, although they remain a secondary option. Alonso's full, wholehearted priority remained firmly on Liverpool, and all the indications from his camp, his agency, former players he remains in contact with, and wider industry sources continue to point towards him becoming Liverpool's next manager, with the process now effectively in its final stage. The only final internal green light and formal confirmation from the ownership side remain, meaning the direction is clearly set, even if until the last step is taken, a slight degree of uncertainty remains and the situation stays open enough to keep other elite clubs attentive, excuse me. So, lots there, lots of words in that, but what do we take from it? They believe on their side, and again, this isn't just this account. I've spoken to other people and been in contact with other people on the German side that do believe that Alonso is coming to Liverpool. Now, like I said, I don't know at this point. All I can tell you is that despite all the protestations from the club about keeping Slaw, there are still some people that think he's going to be fired. You can take your guess at this point. I'm not coming on here to say one way or the other, but I have spoken to a few people today, and they're still not really buying what Liverpool are selling with regards to the manager. So I don't know, folks, basically. But what I do know is the situation is going to get worse, in my opinion, and in many others. So there was a report from Paul Gorse today that said Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes are said to remain unwavering in their backing of Arne Slot. And then they went on to talk a little bit about the exhaustive 6-month search for a new coach. Now, I think what worries me about that is, are they just getting to the point where they don't want to admit they made a mistake in their exhaustive 6-month process? Because I don't understand, like I've said, how we can look at this objectively and come to the decision that 16, 17 losses in a season is okay. Laurie, who I'm sure you're aware of if you're on X, he posted to say that this basically confirms what we already knew. Edwards' ego is too big to admit that he got something wrong, so he's going to stick by Slot to prove the exhaustive search was justified. Now, again, that's where we're at with that one. So, not want to come on to bang the drum about the manager situation over and over again, but it ain't going away. Now, really interestingly, we finally seen a former player come out and say that Slot isn't good enough and the Slot should be gone. And I'll talk you through a little bit of what Danny Murphy had to say on TalkSport earlier on, because I actually agree with a lot of what Danny said. Can't be like United with Ten Hag. Slot must go now, said Camel Deep Singh. Mate, I'm right there with you, Camel Deep, and thank you as always, sir, for almost a year and a half with us as a member as well. Really appreciate that, Camel Deep. But you're right, and that's where this is going to go. And I don't know of anybody who thinks differently. Look, you can be of the mindset that you think Slot deserves another crack at it next season. That's fine. But honestly, we're going to end up in this situation like Ten Hag, where he's going to go. He isn't good enough. He's not going to be good enough. That's not going to change. All that's going to change is how long we're going to suffer as fans. That's it. Will players even sign for us when they know Slot will be the manager next season? Other names are more attractive. I don't know. That's a question, I guess, that only individual players or their camps can answer. Yeah, I don't know, mate. I don't know. You would have to think we're still going to be an attractive proposition, right? But there was one other bit today that I wanted to have a conversation about, and that was the club saying or briefing that they hope to raise about £100 million from sales to add to the kitty for the summer. Now, looking around, where are they going to get 100 million from? I think you maybe McAllister, Jones. If Alisson goes, you might get a transfer fee there, but it's still a lot of money to try and recoup, because if I'm looking at the squad, there isn't much excess fat to trim, really, if you look at it. Joey, how are you, bro? Said, I seriously think we should look into Bazamana Toure and I don't know how to pronounce this lad's name, Eslani, as a double swoop. Looking up DCM to Nagal, I don't know who that is either, Arthur Vermeulen, Alessandro Pavlovic may be worth a look. Look, we can discuss names back and forth, but I don't know who we're looking at except Wharton. That's the only name that's really been bandied around there. There's been a little bit on Carlos Baleba as well, but honestly, I don't really have anything for you on the central defensive midfielder search. I wouldn't be putting 50 quid on any name at this moment in time, because right now the focus really just seems to be around the managerial situation on every side. Of course, they're going to be working on transfers. There's no doubt about that. But everybody I'm speaking with is so preoccupied with the managerial situation that it's there's not much conversation around transfers in the circles that I'm in anyway at the minute. Right, I want to just again point out something just to show you how wrong David Ornstein has been on a lot of stuff recently. This isn't Liverpool related, but this was David Ornstein a few days back talking about the situation with Chelsea and their manager. He said, to my knowledge, they don't intend to review the coaching position until at the earliest the summer of 2027, at the end of his first full season, which was the case with Mauricio Pochettino and Maresca as well. So Ornstein thinks he has another year there, but he's fired today. So like I said, the clubs will brief whatever they want out there, but it's really difficult to just kind of read between the lines of what the club is briefing and what the reality is behind the scenes. And everybody knew that Rosignol was going to be fired. It was just a matter of when. And Ornstein was still out there into the world saying, yeah, well, my information is that they keep him and he keeps him until at least 2027. How'd that work out? So the reason I'm bringing this up is not to ridicule David Ornstein, but to say to you that there's so many conflicting reports from clubs with reality that it's hard to know what to take seriously. Where's somebody hit? I seen it there. Where was it? Somebody said one more season. I can't remember. Where'd that comment go? There we go. Sinister says one more season for me. That's absolutely your prerogative, my man. Do you mind me asking why though? You know, because like I said, I'm not to just flat out disagree with you, but I would love to know the reasoning why you think one more season. You know, are you seeing something maybe in performances recently that you think he could turn the tide? Just curious, really, mate. Stevie boy, how are you, sir? It's not an Anfield Agenda stream without our friend from Australia popping in to say hello. Stevie boy, how are you, my friend? Said Shirley Slott's manager has held talks with the Chuckle brothers on a contract extension. So the only thing I can say to you about Slott's agent is that he spoke with Ajax at one point in the not too distant past. That's all I can say that I know about Slott's representatives. It is a weird one because to see Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards just back Slot is fair enough. They're entitled to do that. But from FSG's perspective, I honestly just wonder what they're thinking about this. Because, like, they have their sporting director who they're apparently given carte blanche with Hughes and Edwards to make this decision on Slot's future, which I find a little bit disconcerting when they're not going to be here in a year's time anyway. So who is making the real strategic long-term decisions at the club? Because why would you put a big decision in the hands of people who aren't going to be here in a year's time? It really just doesn't make much sense to me. Because if this goes sideways, which I think it will, then we're going to be stuck in this horrible loop of chasing our tails again, trying to figure it out. But anyway, I digress. Let's get to some comments. Eno said, God, I hope the Alonso situation is true. I don't think us fans can go another season with Slot and his boring football. So I've kind of, I won't say come to peace with it, Ian, but as the days have gone on, I've more and more, I won't say trained myself, but I'm preparing for Slot to be here because I have to think about it from that scenario because I have to plan for every eventuality here on the channel. But in my mind anyway, that's I'm probably more towards the idea of Slot staying at this point than leaving. Until something changes or proper news breaks, I don't know what else to say because I don't want to come on here and dream about Alonso only to be disappointed to see him go elsewhere. So for me, I'm just treading water, seeing what happens and trying to react to it. XX Spider Sith said, I can understand the one more year argument because we saw Klopp how pivotal competent midfield is to success. So maybe Slot does revive us with a 6 and competent wingers. So there's a couple of things on that, right? It's fair enough what you've said, of course. But it comes back to the first season for me. If we knew that this was going to be a transitional period in the club's history, and let's look at it from that perspective first, then why did they sit in their hands for the first year of a 3-year cycle? Where they knew all of them were there for that 3 years. Nobody committed past that. So they had the first season where we brought in Chiesa and we signed Mamardashvili for the future. Did nothing with regards to helping the first team. So then we went into the next window and we've made these changes. We've brought in Frimpong, Isak, Ekatike, Wirtz, Kirkes. But here's where it all kind of not falls apart, but confuses me. I'm willing to sit here and admit that this has seen a lot of change this season and that has led to some disjointed performances. I'm willing to concede on that point. But anybody who wants to have another year, please answer this point. Why will it be any different next year when he has another 4 or 5 players this summer? How all of a sudden has that churn? No problem. We can ease through with that. But last summer, everybody apparently knew it was transitional. These are the little things that I can't get my head around. You know, if we're in this period of transition, which I don't accept, but let's say we are, then surely this season's going to see something of the same. Because we're going to lose Mo, we're going to lose Robertson, more senior players out the door. We're bringing in Costas to cover at left back by the looks of it, which isn't improving us. Then let's say we add in a number 6. Let's say we add in a winger or two. Let's say we add in a right back. I'm still struggling to see how we don't have the same teething problems, and that's me being kind, that we had all this season. And that's where this whole thing falls apart for me. Because he didn't show any improvement as this season has gone on. And I was watching Manchester City in the first half against Burnley. And to hear the commentators say that Man City lost 2 of their opening 3 games or something like that in the Premier League and had a really shaky start. But they went out in January, they acted, and you've seen that improvement as the season's gone on, and now they're looking at a potential treble. And that's where Slot's whole reign falls apart for me, is I don't see the improvements. Not, like, even pushing aside the league title season. Just for this year alone, I haven't seen that we've gotten better or these players have started to understand the system as it's gone on. That's, I know it sounds really simple, but that's it for me. If there was a progression, if we genuinely looked like we were playing better, I'd understand it a lot more. That meme guy said, I also think Slot will stay, but in fairness, it's not all on Slot because naturally we have new signings. And next season we can expect the signings to step up, but this season has been injury ravaged. And again, so on the injury thing, was that not one of the things that Slot was supposed to be good at, preventing? Was that not one of the things in his plus column when they were doing their research? Similar brand of football, similar football and philosophy, the ability to overachieve, the ability to improve players with coaching, and the ability to maintain the availability of first team players above and beyond the average. These were all things that were put into the plus column when they were doing the recruitment search. So where's that gone? You know, I would argue that the reason for injuries this season are partially because just the sheer amount of football everyone's having to play. But again, let me talk about next season. What makes you think that in a season of a World Cup, where players are going to be out there playing and having no real break throughout the summer, that we're not going to see more injuries again next season? Because I think a lot of people have bought into the excuses this year and have kind of fallen afoul of the nonsense that Arna and the club have come out with at times. You get more injuries when you don't use the full squad you have, when you're playing players over and over and over again, when you're maybe bringing them back a little bit too quickly. And then we have to look at the training methods. How is it the Frimpong had fuck all injuries at Leverkusen, comes to us and he has 4 or 5 hamstring injuries in one season? That's a bit weird, right? Now that's just one sample, but you can see where I'm coming from. These are all the things he's supposed to have been good at. Not so much. That's where all this shit falls apart for me. Is I'm open to playing the numbers game, but when the numbers aren't adding up and you're still talking about the same numbers, it doesn't make sense to me. Cal said, Craig, Liverpool 2016 to 2024, known for hard work ethic and team morale. Now we see an exodus of legends and fallouts, plus clear poor treatment of Harvey, Kwanzaa, Morton, Endo, Fede, etc., etc. Our culture has changed. Yes. And Danny Murphy kind of was talking earlier on about that change in Liverpool. And he said himself, not putting words in Danny's mouth, he said, when Liverpool fans get to this point with a manager, it's pretty much impossible to turn it back around. And that's where we're at. Because Danny went on there and he spoke honestly about how fans are feeling. Jim White turned around and asked them, is there more fans against Arna than for him? And he said, absolutely yes. Far more fans against them than for him. So it's just good to finally hear some honesty from somebody rather than the usual suspects being put forward to just tell us about how apparently there's a split in the fan base and some people want them. It used to be that it was the fans in the stadium that, you know, were the real one. They were the real gauge of where we're at. And then when they turned, well, that can got kicked down the road a little bit as well. And again, the narrative started to change. Would I ever visit Petra in Jordan? Lovely place. I don't know. I've never heard of it, to be quite... I've heard of Jordan, honestly, but I've never heard of Petra. So, don't know is the honest answer, my friend. But I appreciate you. And happy anniversary with us as a year as a member as well, my man. Thank you. If it wasn't for 1985, we could have won more Champions League, said Jaden. Jaden, that's weird. I don't know what the fuck you're going with that. You're talking about the ban from Europe. I don't know, that's just a weird comment, Jaden. I don't know where you're going with that one, to be honest, mate. Cal said, now blindly asking FSG, who are renowned for being stingy, to throw cash at the Three Musketeers to fix a problem of their own doing terrifies me long term. Well, that's where I'm most concerned about Liverpool, Cal, at the minute, is long term. Because I don't see the stability at the club anymore. Like people have said, the whole ethos of the club is seemingly changing. The standards have slipped away. Nobody wants to stay too long. Like, I still can't get my head around Hughes not wanting to be here more than 3 years. Like, that really baffles me as a man who came in from Bournemouth to Liverpool, that he doesn't want to be here more than 3 years. That's weird. Leona said, Slot lost 9 of 12 games in all competitions. Rosignol lost 5 games in a row and Slot wasn't sacked. Not saying Rosignol should have been sacked. Look, the easiest way I can keep putting this, Leona, is I don't know what they're looking at that's shown them that he's turning this around or that he might turn it around. And until I can figure that out in my own mind, I can only keep repeating myself because I'm not seeing it. And I don't think you are either, and I don't think much of us are. But yeah, that's the question that has us all confused. Why keep Slot when he's lost the dressing room? Well, have you not noticed that they're starting to strip away that dressing room? Or anybody with any influence? Or anybody that has had a big role to play in the past? Now, you can kind of dress it up as well to talk about these cycles coming to an end, but I think it's a bit deeper than that. And I do think they're trying to clear out the old guard. For good or bad, I do think it's happening right in front of us. And Virgil, actually, speaking about leadership, had this to say. 1 second. Where was Virgil's comments? So Virgil earlier on said, about leadership, you have to ask the questions to the guys higher up. The leadership boys are falling apart in terms of players leaving. So players have to step up and see what the guys making the decisions are going to do. But I'm pretty sure everybody has the right intentions to make us, as a club, competitive and hopefully not have a season like we're having this season again. Also, from our captain Virgil van Dijk, he said, after the World Cup in pre-season, it'll be an interesting development in terms of how the manager sees it as well. And then we have to tackle the season in the best way possible and not have a season like we had this season. Graham Bailey said FSG are set to leave the decision on Arne Slot's future in the hands of football chief Michael Edwards and sporting director Richard Hughes, who will assess the campaign in full before making any final calls. A positive result in the Merseyside derby against Everton was seen as vital. See, this is what does my head in. How many times this season has a game been vital until we've shit the bed and then all of a sudden that can got kicked down the road? FA Cup, vital. Well, how did that go? Champions League, home and away, vital. How did that go? Then it was the Everton game, which we've won, so all of a sudden now everything's rosy. It's weird. Anyway, he goes on to say, a positive result in the Merseyside derby against Everton was seen as vital, while further high-profile fixtures, including a trip to Old Trafford to face in-form Manchester United, will be closely scrutinised. Beyond results, the hierarchy are understood to be monitoring player reaction and how the squad continues to respond to Slot's method during this critical period. Now, if we take that at face value and we say that, okay, Hughes and Edwards are assessing the reaction of the squad, if they're seeing the same things I'm seeing, if they're looking at the same body language that I'm looking at, again, I don't think there's anything there in the keep Arne Slot column, really. Derek said, Craig, do you think that Alonso partly not going to sit around waiting on a chance FSG say they want him? I think there could be some truth in the report. Absolutely. I said to you guys, I want to say 2 weeks ago, maybe even less, do you think we're being arrogant in the way that we talk about Alonso? Or do you think we're being arrogant that we assume he's just going to sit there and wait and wait and wait? You know? Because if they really want to keep Slot and they're going to do it, I'm sure they would have told Alonso by now, no need to hang around, fella. You know, we're going to stick with Arne. You know, wish you all the best. Maybe our paths cross down the line or whatever. But I don't know. I don't know. And until, I guess, he gets really linked or in conversation with another job properly, it's still going to be something that happens. But I guess the worry I have is September, October, November time, it's a different landscape. If you don't start the season well and you fire the manager, it's a totally different landscape for a whole lot of reasons. You don't have the availability of coaches. You're already into another season. So this is a big summer because they're going to bet the house on Slot and the rebuild and Slot being able to turn it around. I'd rather we accept that this season didn't go to plan, bring in a new coach and let that new coach work towards getting results from the players and turning it around because, like I said, nothing to show me this season that Slot's figuring it out. Daniel Roberts said, or Danielle, excuse me, Craig, I don't recognise this club anymore, to be honest. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from in that regard. I won't say I don't recognise it, but I'm certainly looking at it with a lot of hypocrisy being spewed about what's important. 1 minute winning. So I was looking back at some of the posts from last summer from the likes of Chris Bascom and others, and they were all kind of Arne Slot has been given a record war chest to try to secure Liverpool back-to-back league titles and build for a dominant future or something along those lines. And then all of a sudden now we're being told, no, this was a transitional season. Everyone knew it. Everyone knew this was a transitional season. Did we? You might have want to told all the briefings from last summer then. They tried to be smart and waited out for Gay. How did that turn out? Yeah, I know. Didn't go well. Didn't go well. I think that's fair to say. So, just when I thought the transfer links couldn't get any more disturbing, it's hold my bear time, ladies and gentlemen. So, Gazzetta dello Sport in Italy have linked us with, and I can't believe I'm saying this name out loud, because if this guy comes to Liverpool, I'm going to say we're fucked. But they're linking us with Randall Kolo Muani as a potential replacement for Mohamed Salah, but face competition from Juventus for the Paris Saint-Germain forward. No thank you. Pass. Next. Absolutely not. No way. No chance. No how. Randall Kolo Muani. No. Not for me. Very strong no for me on that one. Absolutely. Get the fuck out of here with that nonsense. Imagine saying with a straight face, yeah, we might want to replace Mohamed Salah with Randall Kolo Muani. Sure thing, boys. That makes a lot of sense. Sam said, no progress on the Rana by Christmas. Another season down the drain. We need better as fans, and the hierarchy situation is worrying. What has happened to us? I think this goes back even further than when Arna came in with regards to the club. You know, because remember what we talked about when Richard Hughes, Michael Edwards and Slot did come in, is that we talked about the fact that Liverpool had taken their eye off the ball on on contract renewals and stuff like that. So as much as there is a lot to say about Slot and failure, I think the club needs to take a long, hard look at itself and how it's been run. Because yes, there was a lot on the inbox of Michael Edwards when he came in and Richard Hughes. But the club took their eye off the ball. That's how the Trent situation got to the way it did. And many journalists, to be fair, at that point wrote about that. I think it was Paul Joyce and a few others said that, look, Liverpool have clearly taken their eye off the ball there. So, you know, I think this goes back even further, or the warning signs maybe should have been there even before Arna came into the club. It felt like as soon as, from the whole period of when George Schmadtke came in, I would say, to up to now, is been concerning. Not because George Schmadtke didn't bring in some good players, but he was only doing the transfer side of it. Nobody was looking after the contract side of it, really, from a sporting director perspective at that time. And that's what kind of has us chasing our tail a little bit and playing catch-up and seeing so many of these contracts getting right down to the nitty-gritty. You know, here we are still now, 22nd of April, and yes, it looks positive that Canade might stay, but still no signed agreement there. Oshmoose says they're acting like they destroyed Everton and win 5-0. I know. The only reason we won that derby was because of Virgil van Dijk and his determination. That's it. It was nothing to do with tactics. I don't even think that was a training ground routine for the corner, because all it was Szoboszlai putting in a very good delivery to the 6-yard box and our captain out muscling a couple of defenders and heading the ball in. There was no smart movement. That wasn't a routine. That was just a good delivery and somebody wanting it more than others. And Virgil rescued the situation. And that's exactly where my head's at. Slot did fuck all to win that game. Nothing. The captain won it with that moment again. And that's been a problem for me throughout the season. A lot of the times where we've won games, we've won it at the death, or we've won it with a miraculous moment from somebody. You know, I was watching Man City in the first half against Burnley, just passing through the lines, knocking it round and just ripping them apart. Yes, Burnley got chances as well, but Manchester City were incisive, moved the ball quickly and knew what they wanted to do. Got the ball out to their wingers, they took on their men, they were pulling balls back. It was pretty self-explanatory what they were doing. For us, still, I don't know. Look, I've been around football for 36 years. I know what I'm looking at. Now, I'm not saying I know what I'm looking at to the nth degree like a Pep Guardiola, but I know a spoofer when I see one. And I know a team that isn't well coached. And I know a team that isn't getting the instruction or it's not sinking into them. And then on top of that, I think we as fans have to be honest and say, there's been times this season where it looks like they flat out ignored what the manager asked as well. And that's worrying for a very different reason. You know, that's worrying because it feels as if some of those senior players have said, fuck this for a game of cricket. We're changing it up. And we're doing it this way. So there's a whole lot there. And it feels like they're trying to remove the strong voices from that dressing room. To bring in new people in a new regime that will kind of, I guess, bend the knee a little bit. Or be a little bit less senior in their ability to speak up. Just off work, Craig, what's the news with Alonso? So I'm not going to read out the whole big space post again because it's kind of long-winded. But the gist of it is that Alonso, according to this post, is still very much the guy and very much interested. But I don't want to say he's growing impatient. He's starting to have a little bit more concern about the direction it's going and waiting for the final green light from John W. Henry. Now, if you throw into the mix, of course, as well, that Chelsea have sacked Rosignor today, that's another job that Alonso could be in the mix for. And I know for a fact that they will look at Alonso. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be Chelsea's number one choice. That could be somebody else. Iriol is another name in the mix, and there's been a couple more. But Alonso is going to be another name they look at. So, I think we just need to really know what they're fucking doing. Like, rather than briefing that they're going to keep him, they're going to keep him, they're going to keep him, they're going to keep him. If they are even considering getting rid of him, surely the line has to be, we're at the end of the season, we're going to take stock and we're going to review everything. Now, to be fair, that's the line Romano's kind of gone with for most of the season. But again, I'm going to repeat this because I think it's true. You really see a difference in the way it's reported in the UK and the way it's reported on the continent. And this isn't just about the managerial situation. Go back and think of the transfers and all the stories we've had over the past few seasons. You've seen so many differences in the reporting from one side of it versus the other side of it. And I think if Slot gets sacked this summer, there's going to be a lot of people, a lot of journalists with egg on their face, and a lot of people looking very fucking silly at just trotting out this line over and over again. And I'm praying that they are looking silly, because at this moment in time, the idea of him staying is frightening, but I'm kind of mentally preparing for it. Irvin said, I hate when Slot starts comparing him to Klopp. It's so, it boils my blood, dude. It boils my, and they always do it in a negative way. To say like, well, Klopp had poor seasons as well. Yeah, he did. But can we talk about where Klopp got the club and where he left it? And the fact that every year we were seeing transition, or we knew that the team was in transition. But look, here's another stat that I caught my eye today in an article. Now, the article wasn't actually even about Liverpool. The article was about how poor Chelsea were at running. But I noticed something in the article that kind of showed that we have cause for concern there as well. So let me just grab this piece. So this was up on Sky, and it was distance per game running in the Premier League. And they were shown to show that Chelsea were bottom of the pile, 20th place, and they only cover 106.1 kilometres this season per game. Now, Liverpool, not much better. Liverpool, the team that I think we'll all agree were known for pressing, for running, for being fit. Liverpool rank 18th in the Premier League for distance covered in a game. 18th with 108.5 kilometres. Top of the pile, Manchester City with 115.5 kilometres per game. Second, Leeds United with 114.8 kilometres per game. Arsenal in third, Brighton in fourth. And like I said, Liverpool all the way down in 18th place. So we've got data that shows we're not running far. We've got data that shows that we're conceding or being involved in a lot of 90th minute goals. We've got the run of 9 losses in 12. We've got 16 or 17 losses in one season. Where is the underlying data to show the positives? Any positives? Just any. I don't see them. The only thing I would give credit for is we've sorted out some of the frailty from set-piece defending. That's something I think we've seen a bit of an improvement on. But even at that, to get to that point, they had to throw another coach under the bus. And they did so, and there was no talk about the fact that he was Arne Slot's coach. Like, that failure somehow just got disconnected from Slot, as if his job title isn't head coach in charge of everything below him. So if something fails for him, that's on him. But he gets away with that again. Craig, I think we should invest in getting Hendricks in 2028. He's a complete striker for his age, and he can get even better. Look, personally, I don't like his attitude. I don't like Hendrick. Obviously, there's a footballer in there, but for me, I just don't like the kid. So I'd say no. Exciting. GG said, "Hi Craig, hi from Ukraine. Supported Liverpool since age 6. This is the worst season I've seen. Worse than Hodgson. Can't force myself to watch next season if he stays." I've said the same about worse than Hodgson, and it raises eyebrows, or in my case, eyebrow, when we say that. But at least on the Roy Hodgson, like I've said before, I knew we weren't going to have anything great. You know, the team wasn't great. We didn't have the money. We weren't getting regular Champions League football. So we knew what we were in for in the season. We knew it was going to be a tough season. I think that's the biggest surprise of this year is nobody expected it to be this bad. And if it was a transitional thing, you would have expected it to be a bit shaky for, let's say, the first few months, but gradually improve as the season's gone on and get better. The real reason we're in the Champions League places has absolutely nothing to do with us and everything to do with the inconsistency of the teams around us. And Chelsea just falling away. That's it. What have we had to do to get there? Nothing drastic like winning 6-7 games in a row. We're on a run of, 2 wins in 6 or 2 wins in 5, something like that. It's, I don't know. Cal said, "If we do by some miracle get Alonso, just watch his new signings be Harvey, Costas and renew Canade." I'd take that. I'm not even fucking joking. I would take Alonso coming in now with fuck all money over Slot with 200 million. Hand on heart. Not even joking. That's where I'd be. You know, I can't speak for other people, but I would rather Alonso with fuck all money than Slot with another war chest. Right, let's look at the poll. So, we're asking, do you think Alisson will leave this summer? The reason we're asking that question is there's been 2 or 3 more pieces today. This one from Rich Martin up in Manchester said Alisson is expected to end his 8-year spell at Liverpool this summer, 1 year before his contract expires. On top of that, there was another story about Alisson here from Alfredo Padula, who said, Juventus make a move for Alisson. He's the first choice and the goalkeeper has given his approval. Now, I've said this to you guys for about a week now, to keep an eye on the Alisson situation, and these stories aren't going away. And I still don't know what Alisson wants. I know what they're all saying he wants, but I don't know what he wants. And from Liverpool's side, I don't know if Liverpool are looking at it and thinking, well, we keep him for one more year, but would we be better just making that change now and going to Georgi Mamardashvili from this season onwards? I guess that's a decision for the club to make. For me, selfishly, I'd love Alisson to stay. Of course I would. He's my favourite goalkeeper in my lifetime at Liverpool. Love him to bits. But if he moves on, he moves on. We're just going to have to wait and see what happens. Be very interested to see what Liverpool would look for as well, if indeed they did want to move, or not want to, but even accept Alisson moving. Because we'd still have to look at bringing in a backup keeper. We've been linked with James Trafford, by the way, which again I struggle to take seriously, because I don't think Man City would do business with us. So, 67% of over 2,000 people that voted said that they believe that Alisson Becker will leave this summer. So, oh God, that's so tough to think about, because that means Alisson, Salah, Robbo in one summer. Gone. Out of the dressing room. That is a lot of experience to walk out of a dressing room in one summer. And then, of course, next summer, you've probably got Virgil to go as well. Scary stuff, lads. Now, look, some of this is a natural cycle thing. I'm not trying to put all of this at the feet of Hughes and Edwards. Like, it's fair enough to say that cycle might have been coming towards a close. But again, I think we could have staggered the transition a bit better. The Gekido said, losing legends in our worst season breaks my heart. Yeah, I get it, because that's when you want that experience, that calm heads. But yeah, it's tough. It is tough. And look, like I said, some of this was going to happen anyway, and it wouldn't have been on Hughes, it wouldn't have been on Edwards. Some of this churn of older guard leaving, it's just natural, but it doesn't make it any less sad, like you've said. Kev, how are you, bro? And happy anniversary, mate. A year with us. Said 100% agree about Alonso with no money, slot out. Yep. It's tough to try and find many positives about the idea of him staying. So let's talk again about Virgil. So Van Dijk has called on new leaders to step up at Liverpool. The leadership boys are falling apart, like we've said, in terms of players leaving. He said this: players have to step up. You grow into that leadership role, or you already have it in you. That's something players have to show even more next season. Now, interestingly, Connor put a poll into our WhatsApp, and if you're in the WhatsApp, thank you, and I hope you guys are enjoying it thus far. Connor put in a poll asking, who would you like to see as Liverpool's next vice-captain when Andy Robertson leaves? Now, I think Connor said to me when he last checked, it was something like 94% going for Szoboszlai. So it seems like everybody wants Dom to step into, a more senior leadership role, be a vice captain or whatever. And I totally agree with that. So yeah, thank you to everyone that has voted in that. And if you haven't joined our WhatsApp, please make sure that you do. It's where we're going to be posting all of our transfer news, where we post all our competition giveaways and stuff like that. And you can join simply by scanning that QR code on the screen there now, or using the link in the description of this and most of our videos. We hope to see you in there. It's going to be a big part of what we do moving forward, and we hope that you guys can help make it a bit more fun. Carbon said, I do want slot out, but data shows with his track record that when he's a losing season, he comes back with a winning season, but still slot out. But at the levels, that's what concerns me. This is Liverpool, and this is a league where other clubs are going to spend big again and are going to push on again. So look, for me, let's say we finish 5th or 4th. Either one of them, 5th or 4th. So how will the season have gone then? Didn't make a semi-final of any cup competition. Didn't obviously win a cup. Haven't really defended the league title. And finished from 5th or 4th. I don't know how, weighing all of that up, anything points to a good season or even an acceptable season. Because Champions League football might be acceptable for FSG and the money, but it isn't for us fans. Yes, we want to be in it, but it's no good pulling an Arsenal on it and just going in it every year and going out at the quarters or whatever. We want to fucking win it. And if you don't feel that going into the season, it's very difficult for that to translate into the stadium. And like I mentioned at the start of the stream, it used to be that Carragher and lots of others said, well, online is a bit toxic. The real Liverpool fan reaction, shall we say, is to be gauged from inside Anfield. Then Anfield started to turn against the manager. The boos came in, people leave early. Now all of a sudden that narrative's changing again. Now it's a split in the fan base. There's no split. And if there is a split, it's 95-5 in favour of getting rid of him. The only people that seem to want to keep Slot in a job are the people that made the decision to bring him in the first place and don't want to look foolish. That's it. And that's the opinion of so many Liverpool fans across social media, in real life, that a lot of them just think this is stubbornness. And if Richard Hughes was going to be here for the next 7 or 8 years, cool. But he's not going to have to clean this mess up. He's going to fuck off to his new job. So why are we to believe that they have the real best interests and are looking at this objectively? Because I don't see any objectivity in the numbers. I don't see anything to suggest he's turned it, will turn it, can turn it. Joey said, watching Diamande bombing the wing cluelessly along with Isak, waiting for balls that are coming in, and Gakpo decreasing stats for another season. Then Ali walks, doesn't make you feel good. Yep. Tis. It's, look. Let's say, for a minute, he stays. Right? So we're working off him staying. So in his system then, how are we going to make this better? Because my argument would be this. One of the biggest areas of concern for us is defensive midfield, right? As Liverpool fans, we all think we need a defensive midfielder. Is that fair to say? If we can agree on that point, then please just answer me one question. Why, 2 years into the role, have we not brought in a defensive midfielder? Right, you and I knew we needed this since Fabinho left. They tried to shoehorn Gravenberch in and it worked for one season, but became pretty clear that he wasn't a defensive midfielder this year. And they've still waited 2 years to do that. And that's a glaring deficiency in the squad. Why is that? Why does Slot all of a sudden want to need a defensive midfielder, but for the 2 years beforehand, didn't think he needed one? Who's making that judgment? I can give you so many examples of these stupid little things that if you really want to buy into what they're saying, then why didn't they spot half of this shit a year and a half ago? David Newell said, I have a feeling Macca joins Atletico Madrid in the summer. Do you know, I never really gave that much thought, but maybe. On Alexis McAllister, sure, since you brought him up, David, let's talk a little bit about him. So this piece here from Peter O'Rourke has said, Liverpool are tempted by the idea of cashing in on Alexis McAllister this summer. The midfielder is viewed as a saleable asset, and with the Reds likely to cash in on a few players to fund new arrivals, McAllister could fit that eventuality. Now, not to give myself a pat on the back, but who told you this last summer? That this year will be the year that the club will make a decision about Alexis McAllister and he could go. I said this before the fall off this year because that was the information that I had. And now it's coming to fruition. So to the people that again want to come on every night and just think that we talk out of our arse, our track record is pretty good on this channel. And McAllister, I guess the big question is, one, how much? And two, where? Because I don't think Madrid have the money. I don't think Barcelona are going to be in the mix. So where would be able to really tempt Alexis McAllister? Maybe Atleti, as David said. It's a good show. I've not seen any direct links now, but it's a good show. Mario said, hi Craig, Alonso is the guy all the fans want. No, I have to pull you up on that, Mario. He isn't. You know, a lot of us do. But I've got to be fair about it. There are people who want Slot out, but don't really think Alonso's the guy. Now, that being said, Mario, there's still a lot of people that want Alonso to come in. But I have to be honest, I talk about reading things, chatting with people, trying to gauge fan feeling. There is, and I'd probably put myself in that mix. There are people with genuine reservations over the idea of Alonso, and I'd probably be one of them. But those reservations are a lot less than keeping Slot in the job. I would say that to you, mate. Evening, Craig. I think João Gomez from Wolves, about 35 million, will be a bargain for DM. Certainly a credible one, a credible shout. His name has been linked with us quite strongly for probably a year now. I wonder if we're going to lose Jones as well as a homegrown player. I think we do have to be mindful of the homegrown aspect, which is why I think mentally I keep coming back to Wharton as being the one that just seems to fit profile-wise, experience-wise, age-wise. Just, seems a sensible one to me. Team rep. So we need to act like Chelsea and bring out signs saying we need change, because seriously, we can change him from staying. We cannot miss out on Alonso right now. So look, here's what I'm doing, because there's not much I can do. I can come on here and have my say. I can come on here, gauge your opinion. But the only thing we can really do as fans is vote with our keyboards and vote with our wallets. That's all we can do at this moment in time. And for me, and this is genuinely difficult for me because I'm an Adidas nut, but I'm not buying another thing from Liverpool Football Club while Arne Slot's in charge. Not a thing. No jerseys, no memorabilia, fuck all. Not one penny, no all-red memberships, nothing. Not spending a cent until he's gone. Sounds petulant, sounds childish. Hey, it might well be. But it's the only thing I've left. And it's the only thing I think we can do to show our displeasure at the situation. Because posting it in socials, toxic online fans, they try and undermine you that way. But they can't undermine a lack of hospitality seats being sold. They can't undermine jerseys not being sold as much as possible. So I think we're just going to have to try and bite the bullet on this one if we really, really do want change. We're going to have to vote with our wallets and vote with our feet. As difficult as that is, because I know it's so tempting. New stuff comes out, new jersey, you want to have it. And I'm not going to do it this year. That's, the one small thing that I'm going to try to do, which, is very unlike me. I love it. It's one of my most exciting times of the year when Liverpool change, stuff like that, but I'm not spending a penny. Will said, rate this window, please, Craig. Out, Maka, Jones, Salah, Robbo, Endo, Bradley, Alisson. In, Diamande, Toure, Wharton, Fernandes, Palestra, Trafford. So the Fernandes is West Ham's Fernandes. Am I right in that one? Palestra, don't know much about, so I have to say I'll have to gloss over that one. Trafford, look, I'd be more than happy with Trafford as a competitor, but I just don't see City selling them to us. But that's not what you asked me. You asked me to rate the window. There's not much on that list I'd be unhappy with, except, like I said, I don't know enough about Palestra, so I'm going to have to put my hands up on that one. But I don't dislike that list at all, Will. So for me, 8. But what does stand out to me on the list, Will, and it, by the way, especially the outgoings seem very reasonable. That's a lot of change again. Just seeing it in front of you in black and white like that with the names. And they're all possible. It's a lot of change. And it only reinforces my belief that that's going to end up causing us to be disjointed again next season. Because what really will be tough to take is, let's say we go into next year and we stutter like we have this season. If I have to see journalists start to write about a churn of fucking players again, or a transition again, I don't know what else to say. Because we'll be the only club going into year 4 still in transition at that point. So I'd rather transition with these changes again with someone else. But like I said, there's only so much I can say and do about that. What's this? So this just come in from Tudor Sport around the Alisson situation. So this says that Liverpool would demand around 15 million euro to let Alisson depart this summer. Probably feels about fair. You know, with 1 year on his contract that Liverpool triggered, the age he's at, I wouldn't be displeased if Liverpool got somewhere between 12 and 15 million pound. I'd be sad to see Alisson go, but you know, if we take it that we can't do anything about that, or he wants to go, or the club feel now is the right time to rip the band-aid off, whatever way you want to dress it up, I think the numbers there make sense. Because it's better than him going for nothing. Itachi said, from today I made my peace. Arna is staying next season. All these senior players expected to leave. Has to mean something. Bring back Kelleher. Hope you're all doing well. I've kind of not made my peace, but I'm mentally planning for him being here as well. Just because I pretty much always do try to plan for the worst case scenario. So yeah, I wouldn't say I'm at peace with it because I'm not, but I think I'm at least planning for it, Itachi. How many wingers are we getting and leaving? Elise, I don't think Elise is going to be possible, Shay. You know, and look, being honest about it, if I was Elise right now, I probably wouldn't move. I'd probably say at least one more year there at Bayern. And then see how Liverpool's transition goes, let's say. So, how many wingers? It has to be two. In my mind, it has to be two. Because we're losing Salah, and then Chiesa is probably going to go as well. So we've got 0 for the right-hand side. So I'm going to say we need 2. Shane said, my club is less ambitious than effing Bolton. They're going to give Carrick the job and sign Baleba. We need Emery, Nagelsmann with Tonali, Tchouameni and Anderson/Stiller and one more midfielder. Yeah, Shane, you're not going to get any sympathy today from me, bro, because we're talking about Arne Slot staying in the job. We're back to your Ten Hag moment. So that's where I'm at, mate. Do you know what I do find funny, though, Shane? Is that everybody, even in the media, seems to keep falling into the same trap about Manchester United's legendary players and giving them jobs. And they never seem to learn the lesson about it. I don't think giving Michael Carrick the job's the right decision. I think he's done a brilliant job. And I think he's certainly given himself more credibility for another job. But I don't think for 1 second that when you get into the Champions League next year and you've got 2 games a week, I just don't think it's going to work. I don't think he's going to be. He's going to be the right appointment. And I'm actually gobsmacked that it looks like it's trending in that direction. And I'm even more gobsmacked to see people on back pages tonight that were warning about not doing this when he was coming in, and the pitfalls of it and falling for it again are falling for it again. So I will not sympathise with you, but I do understand that frustration because I can't believe it's happening again. Carbon said, I'd love to keep Jones and Elliott. Both have shown their worth, key passes and winning goals. They're both great coming off the bench, and we should have gotten Lookman when we had the chance. So Lookman, I think, is not good enough and too old, in my opinion. What is he, 27, 28 now? So I would respectfully disagree on that. Elliott, I've always wanted to come back, and I wonder if Alonso was coming in, let's say, would he want to give Harvey Elliott another opportunity? I think he probably would. And what was the other one you said, mate? Jones. Yeah, look, Jones, I think it's more down to the contractual situation than anything else. Because I can understand people wanting to keep Curtis Jones. But imagine you woke up and you've seen Curtis Jones signed $220,000 a week deal. So, you know, that would feel a bit odd. So yeah, look, I'd rather Curtis Jones get sold this summer than leave for free in a year. And if it is because he wants more game time and he wants to play, which is of course perfectly normal, I just don't think he's going to get that at Liverpool, because I don't think any way we dress this up, any of us would put Curtis Jones in a best 11 in any iteration of Liverpool. Very good player, like you said, off the bench and squad, no problem with Curtis Jones being around, but I understand with the contractual situation if Liverpool would rather cash in than double down on the new deal, or have a player that is going to want more minutes that maybe he won't get. Shane said, Craig, mate, we've been in transition for 13 years. I know, Shane, I know. And, I would say, and I don't know if this has changed on your side, Shane, because I don't keep too abreast of Manchester United news, but there was a lot of executive issues at United as well. And a lot of look, as a football fan, I sympathise with you on one thing, Shane. It gets fucking frustrating seeing people that own clubs not really understand who to put their faith and trust in when they're appointing people to really important positions. That's one thing that FSG have in the main got right at Liverpool. But I have been concerned with the churn of sporting directors from our side over the last 10 years. I think there's been 4, maybe 5. And again, the one we currently have seemingly doesn't want to be here in a year's time either. And I wonder why that is. And I keep coming back to the fact it has to be the owners. Anyone know why a fee for Ali but not for Mo? I have my suspicions, but I don't know. My suspicion, Cal, is that Mo's been given the freedom and has been told to hush and say nothing. No bad mouthing, no telling secrets about the dressing room. That's my guess, and it is absolutely a guess. But that's the only thing I can think of, and that's exactly what I thought of as soon as I heard Salah was going to be allowed to go for nothing. That's exactly where my mind went. That this has to be something to say, okay, we'll do this, but you do this. That's my take. Again, could be absolutely clutching at straws, but, it's where my mind went. Airwolf, how are you, dude? Said, as much as Rosinha was useless, it was refreshing to hear a manager absolutely calling out his players. Our manager blames low block or outscoring XG. I said the very same thing to Connor earlier on, mate. You're right. It was. And he was right. And I can't remember which one of the Chelsea players it was, but one of them, maybe it was Chalobah or somebody, came out and said that the Chelsea players ran their socks off. Come on now. I watched that game. They did fuck all. So if that's them Chelsea players running their socks off, you can't come out with that excuse when we've seen them play PSG in the Club World Cup and actually run their socks off and actually work their backsides off. And I said it then, I was worried about Chelsea. But what really seems to be coming out of Chelsea is that whole Blue Coat project is a basket case. And the decisions that we all laughed at about these lengths of contracts and so far, the chickens are coming home to roost now. I've never known a club to spunk as much money up the wall and continually get away with it as Chelsea. It's mental. They're seemingly still losing about 600 grand a week or something. Or Blue Coat. It's crazy. And Chelsea fans rightly annoyed about it. But I want to balance somewhere between Chelsea's ruthlessness and Liverpool's way of operating. I just don't think at the minute we're being ruthless enough as a club. Do you think we'll just let Slott's contract run out since it expires in 2027 and gamble on him getting a top 5 finish next season instead of sacking him and paying him a large sum of money? Is it really a large sum of money though? Like, best estimates are somewhere between 8 and 10 million for him and his staff to be fired. We generated 700 million quid in revenue last year. Sell Chiesa and that pretty much pays off getting rid of Arna and the lad. So, if Liverpool want to double down on Arna this summer, I think they should do it with a new contract and put their money where their mouth is. Because not backing him, and look, we've talked about this from the club side a lot, and we've talked about it from our side as fans a lot. But over the last day or two, I've started to wonder, from Arna's side and from his agent's side, how are they looking at this? Because we obviously think about it selfishly as fans. But I wonder, if I put myself in Slott's shoes, I wouldn't exactly feel reassured that the club believe in me. Because at the start of the season, there was lots of talk about a new contract. And I remember some quotes from him saying something like, we're in no rush for that. Talks will continue, blah, blah, blah. And that's gone away completely. So if you really believe you've got a top manager who's going to bring success back, well, let's say he does well this season and then top clubs come in from and he decides, you know what? Fuck this. I'm out. That's going to leave them looking pretty stupid again, isn't it? So, yeah, if they really believed in him, they should be giving him a new deal. But they're not, which again is only giving more credence to the opinion that they don't trust them. Itachi said, as of today, if Bayern come in for Wirtz, which they love, would you accept a swap deal for Elise? Come into my mind when I was at work. No. Look, I'm not willing to give up on Florian Wirtz. This is my stubborn streak coming out, I think, because I'm convinced he's a great player. And I'm still convinced he's going to come good. So no, I wouldn't do a swap because I think Florian Wirtz has the ability to win a Ballon d'Or. And I think, yes, it hasn't been the season maybe we hoped from him. I'm not trying to say he's been amazing, but my belief hasn't wavered. But my problem is I still see him struggling a little bit under Slot. Whereas I'd feel a lot more assured about Wirtz if it was Alonso that came in. Because I think he'd absolutely know how to set up in and around Florian. How would Alonso's backline 3 work with our centre-backs? First we need to stop with the misconception that he only plays with a back 3. Look at his time at Real Madrid. He's also operated with a back 4. But what you've said, how would it work? Well, we've got right now Gomez, Van Dijk, Canade, Leone and Jeremy Jacquet. They are, at this moment in time, who we know to be contracted to Liverpool, with Canade's deal up in the air, but maybe signing a new one. I think Gomez goes, and then you'd probably have to see Liverpool bring in another one. So we could operate with a back 3 easily. And then I think on top of that, you've got wing backs, no problem. Kirkes and Frimpong. Midfielders, you still need to bring in a bit more of a defensive, or a bit more legs, I would say, in midfield. Then you've got your strikers. And what happens with the wide players would be the interesting thing with Alonso. How could he utilise that? Or would we see a change maybe in the transfer approach if Alonso came in? That maybe you bring in one versatile attacking player? Burnley relegated. What score did that one finish, actually? The Manchester City game. I didn't actually see the final score. So what was the final score on that one? Got tickets to see Dermot Kennedy. Nice. Enjoy. Just 1-0. Wow. Only 1-0. I thought they were going to put a shed load past them. That makes it interesting. So they're just ahead of Arsenal now on goals scored, if I'm not mistaken. Interesting. It's going to be an interesting last 4 games. Itachi said, big shout out to Leona, who did great today. They're singing. Nice. Delighted for you, Leona. Well done. And congrats again on the Dermot Kennedy tickets. That's it's going to be a great gig. Elise will cost an arm and a leg after the World Cup. I think at this point that ship has sailed anyway. You know, I think whenever Carbon Elise is going to come onto the market, if he does, you know, he's going to be 100 million plus, isn't he? Yeah. But I don't think you get him out of Bayern before the World Cup. I don't think there's any hope. What's your thoughts on our centre-back depth for next season? Says user Sai564. So I'm quite bullish in that regard. Like, if we're staying with a back 4, you know, let's just work off that premise for a minute. You know, having Leone, Jacquet, Van Dijk, Canade, and then as we still say here, Gomez. I think that's all right. I think that's fine. And then you've got obviously some younger centre-backs that we could look at as well. But yeah, I'm happy enough with the depth going into next season. It wasn't good enough for this season. We left ourselves short, but introduce Jacquet into the mix, Leone come back in. I think we're good enough in that regard. Yeah, I think no problems there. It will be interesting to see, though, if Gomez goes, what we do there. Do we go for another profile of a defender who can play 2 positions, right back, centre back, or do we just go for somebody who just is a right back or a centre back. That'll be interesting to see. Is Diamonde worth 100 million? Well, I have to point out it's 100 million euro, so it's about 86 million pound. Is he worth it? No and yes. No, he probably isn't worth it right now, not this second. But the potential, I think, would justify the price tag. Plus, he's had a good season. So I think, if we were being really, really critical about it, say at this exact moment in time, is he a 100 million euro midfielder? Or, wide player? Probably not, but he will be. So I think you're kind of somewhere between what he could get to and maybe a little bit over what he is now. But that's kind of the way transfers are going. I was reading a piece a few weeks ago about Brighton's model and how Brighton go about selling players. And they want to sell players for their eventual peak price now, when they haven't even got to that peak yet. Once they show that they're going in that right direction, when they're looking to sell or clubs come in to buy, they're pretty adamant that they want top dollar for them. Bill Ben said, I'm heading to Anfield for the Palace game of the weekend. Nice. Enjoy it, my friend. I think I'm pretty confident. I know we haven't had a great record against Palace, but I think we'll get this one done. And by the way, the numbers show that Liverpool have almost a 91% chance of Champions League football now with the way the league table currently is. So it's looking pretty good in that regard. What's this? Okay. I'd say he's especially when you think of how much we spent on Hugo, and he's only done one full season in Frankfurt too. Yeah, but I suppose he had a bit of time at PSG as well, Hugo. But look, I'd happily pay the 100 million euro for Diamonde. Now, you always want your club to try and get the best deal possible, of course. But look, I'm a big fan from what I've seen. Don't know as much about Bouzamana Toure, but I've seen a few clips of the pace of the dude, and whoo, he's fast. So here's a question, right? Alexis McAllister, how much is he worth if Liverpool were to sell him? So we have to take into account, I guess, his contractual situation, which is 2 years to go, his age. What would he be worth? If you were Liverpool and clubs were to come and knocking, and you were of the mindset that maybe you would sell him, what would be the asking price for you guys? Mahmood, bro, said 75 million. Frankie, 70 million. 60 million for Red Dinosaur Mother. 50 million for King TMG. 50-60 for Paul Diamond. 70 for that meme guy. 90 for David Massett. 70 for Itachi. Do you know what? Let's do this as a poll. I think it's easier in a poll. 1 second. Because that way we can get a definitive answer. Sorry, bear with me. Okay, so how much is Maka worth? 40, 50, 60 or 70 million plus? And we'll see what people think on that one. So the answers are, how much is Maka worth? 40 million, 50 million, 60 million or 70 million plus? I know the 40 million probably feels really, really low, but 80 felt like it was getting a bit excessive. If it was McAllister of last season, 100 million. Yeah, I'd agree with you on that. And I think we actually said that on a few shows as well. That last season, I'd have probably been in and around the 80 to 100 million mark. But I think some of the comments this season have been quite fair, like Team Rep there as well and a few others. This season, it isn't the same Alexis McAllister, or at least it hasn't been. Now, we don't know going forward if there will be a change or not, but, for me, I'm probably somewhere 60 to 70. Maybe 65 feels about right, but I think anywhere north of £60 million, and I think, I could live with that as a fan anyway. And also, when we talk about a selling price as well, I guess we have to think of who's a buyer. Like who has the money as well as a position. So these things, I guess, come into the equation as well. He's not going to go to Saudi. So you're not going to get that stupid money. He's not going to go to the MLS, obviously, he's too young. So then you're looking around Europe. And if you're looking around Europe, who has the money to really start throwing around 60, 70, 80 million pound transfer fees? There's not much. I really doubt we'd sell him to a Premier League rival. So for selling him outside the Prem, Bayern, they going to want them? Probably not. Madrid, do they have the money? They do need in that position, definitely. And I wouldn't rule them out. But Atletico's an interesting one that David mentioned earlier on as a potential wild card. But, outside of that, I don't really see you would have the money to go that big either. Jones should be worth more than Mac. I don't think he should, for two reasons. One, he's only got a year left on his contract, which, does take a significant chunk off your valuation. And two, let's be honest, if you're looking at careers up to this point, you can't really lace McAllister's boots. Would PSG want Maka? I don't know. Do you know what, Darwizzy? It's a very interesting shout. Like Fabian Ruiz, let's say. How old is he? He must be getting on a bit now, is he? So, yeah, do you know what? I've not seen them linked, but I could see it. I could see him in that midfield. Would you sell Maka to a Premier League team for the right price? Oh, it's a tough question. I think for the right price, for me, I'd sell to anyone. And I mean that because if we're accepting that we don't think he's worth extending, then we're kind of admitting he's run his course with us and we don't think he is what he once was. So if you're admitting that, it's about maximising the potential return. And you'd always ideally like him out of the Premier League, but I wouldn't say no to a Premier League club for the right money. No, I wouldn't. What was it somebody else said? Lamine Camara. Sorry, I meant to talk about him the other night and I forgot. Lamine Camara of Monaco is definitely a name that's worth keeping an eye on for Liverpool from various reports that I've been reading over the past week. Excelio said, Craig, I still think we should go for both Wharton and Gomez. We need to rotate Wharton at some point and Gomez will be a good backup. I wouldn't be against it, mate. Wouldn't be against it one bit. Look, let's say, for shits and giggles, that we sold McAllister and we sold Jones. Then I can absolutely see us bringing in two players to contest the central midfield role in a defensive perspective. Then you've got Gravenberch, you've got Wirtz, you've got Soboslai for those advanced midfield positions. So yeah, I'd have no problem with what you've said. In fact, I'd be right behind what you've said if it came to fruition. Jones will do really well in the Bundesliga. Well, the two clubs, Matt, that I've seen most linked to him are Spurs and Villa. Is Jose Mourinho going to Madrid? I'd read something earlier on, Jack, that said that they're considering it, but I think the name is Hoeneß. Sebastian Hoeneß seems to be, I guess, I won't say the front runner, but one name being discussed. It's really weird because Mourinho's on for a potential invincible season with Benfica and still not win the league. Because I think they have a crazy amount of draws, but they haven't lost a league game this year and they're not top of the league. Why is it apparent that Mac is leaving? I don't know what you mean by apparent. I mean, to me, it's been apparent for about a year, but there's reports, a few reports. One from Peter Rourke said Liverpool are tempted by the idea of cashing in on Alexis McAllister this summer. The midfielder is viewed as a saleable asset, and with the Reds likely to cash in on a few players to fund new arrivals, McAllister could be fit for that eventuality. I think if you look at the age as well, and the fact that this season we've seen somewhat of a fall off from Alexis. Now, it could be because he became a daddy, could be because he came into the season playing catch up, but if you're looking at it with cold eyes, he's probably the one you would sell. You're not going to sell Szoboszlai. You're not going to sell Gravenberch. So I think McAllister probably the sensible one if you are looking to make space in that midfield and bring in some money. And that's why I've been saying this for about a year now. What would be your perfect summer window? Give me names. No, Elise, we're not as delusional as Arna. Okay, I'll try my best. Left back, Anthony Robinson. Defensive midfield, Wharton, and I like the Gomez idea from Spurs, or from Wolves, excuse me, so let's go with that. Wide players, Bowen and Diamonde. That'd do me fine. Yeah. Those signings and I'd be over the moon. So Wharton, Gomez, a left back who isn't Costas. My one was Anthony Robinson. And then Jared Bowen, because of the versatility, being able to play on the wing or play centrally if needs be, with the fact that Hugo's been out for a bit as well. And then Yan Diamonde, because I think he's lightning in the bottle. Slot can't stop the injuries we have this season. They're all unlucky long-term ones. Are they? You might want to tell that to the sports science people who are pointing out the training method flaws in the way we're not getting up to full intensity, and then when players are going into matches and need to be explosive, they don't have that repetition. So I think that's not true, unfortunately. I'm not trying to be an asshole, but I do think, yes, some players are unlucky, like Giovanni Leone. That's unlucky. But I find it really difficult to believe that Jeremy Frimpongs is unlucky when there's been 4 or 5 of them and he had fuck all when he was at Leverkusen. I struggle to think of that being unlucky. Connor Bradley, that's not down to Warner. That's just the way Connor Bradley has been, unfortunately. Hasn't been able to really shake off the injuries. Alisson, again, I don't think that's down to Warner at all. That's just been something that's crept into Alisson's game over the last few years. But I do think the lack of real intensity in training and then trying to replicate on a pitch that intensity and explosiveness, when you are an explosive player that leans on pace and speed and power, if you're not, body's not used to that and you're suddenly going bang, these things can happen. But like I said, I'm not a sports scientist, but people who are have been pointing out the issues around that this season. What would you see Wirtz going out on loan to Germany? Could you see Wirtz going out on loan to Germany? No, not at all. How? I don't see the sense of that. That benefits only the team that he goes to. Doesn't benefit us, because we're still going to be without a player in that role for a whole season. We're hardly going to go out and buy another one. It just doesn't make any sense. And then how would you go about even sorting out a loan fee? I just don't see why you do that. Because if you can get Wirtz right, the payoff for that is far better than letting him develop somewhere, because you're still going to have to bring him back into the Premier League again at some point and then get him up to speed there. So you might as well just keep playing until he gets up to speed. J Money, thank you, bro. Appreciate you. Tiger Valley said starting to seriously want us to bring in Diamonde. Yeah. Look, I'm somewhat of a new convert to that camp, but yeah, I'm all in. Diamonde, to me, having watched the few things of him I've watched, looking into the numbers, seeing how two-footed he is as well, yeah. And of course, you've got that Red Bull hookup where you'd hope Kloppo would, if they are going to sell him, would at least look fondly towards pushing him towards Liverpool. J Money said, forgot to leave a comment, but I just wanted to say I appreciate you and watch you every day. Thank you. from Wichita, Kansas. Sorry. Thank you, J Money. Appreciate you, my man. Thank you. Really do, man. It's been lovely. It's been lovely to see so many new people come in this season, join our community, and you're all very welcome. And thank you, man, for being with us. I asked a question last night in the video. I said about sources, who's reliable, and I was reading through the comments, and so many of them said us here, and I swear to God that never even entered my head when I was asking the question of who do you go to for your news? Who do you think is reliable? I kind of asked it in case I'm missing out. That's one of the reasons why I asked that question, or where I went with that topic last night for the video. You know, we would have got much more numbers if I went and did transfer talk, but it was something I was thinking about a lot over that day. And I did it last night after the stream, and I just said, where do you guys get your news from? Because I'm interested to see if it's an age thing, whereas there's people like me who would still look towards written journalists or, you know, stuff like that. And then you've got maybe new people who get stuff off TikTok or Reddit, stuff like that. I find the whole thing fascinating, how our transfer and football news has changed over the past 10 or 15 years. Itachi, how are you, bro? Said, for me, Robinson, Wharton, Diamonde, Gordon and Kelleher. I still cannot believe we didn't put a buyback option or clause in that deal for Kelleher. It feels mental to me, dude, that we didn't do that. We're going to record a podcast tomorrow, by the way. Myself, Chris and Connor are going to be sitting together to record a podcast. So that would be that'll be up on Spotify tomorrow night for you guys. Just want to just that I was saying to my pals, I go here for the news. Keep it up. Thank you. We do work really hard to try to aggregate and get as much news together as we can for you from as many different places, trying to weed out some of the bullshit as well along the way. So yeah, appreciate that. I do. You know, to be anybody's go-to for information is a pleasure, and it's something that we take seriously as well. You know, we never ever want to mislead anybody or push anyone down the wrong direction, because one of my biggest gripes as a Liverpool fan was when I was on Twitter and I seen people posting stuff that were Liverpool fans or claimed to be Liverpool fans that I knew they knew was bullshit. And it wound me up, because you're intentionally misdirecting people for clicks and they're your fan base. So that always drove me a bit doolally. Craig o'clock Dan. Always a pleasure, my mate. We're in that baby territory again there, dude. 9 months as a member, thank you. Cheers, Craig. It's been a great 9 months. Looking forward to many more. You're my news source. Thanks for all you do. Yeah, this kind of came a natural thing, because I promise you, Dan, if I wasn't doing this, I'd still be doing all the research. I'd still be trying to read up as much as I can. So it almost felt like YouTube and this channel just became a natural extension of my day-to-day life, which is being a transfer hound and being a news hound. That's all I do. I'm on my phone from the minute I get up to the minute I go to bed, looking, researching, trying to find different objectives, or trying to find different narratives, trying to find different topics, trying to find things that challenge my own perspective. James Bailey, how are you, James? Said, for me, it's Anthony Robinson, Adam Wharton, Yan Diamonde, a versatile centre-back like Joe Gomez who can play anywhere along the back line, another winger. Those that come to mind, Barcola, Wilson and Yildiz. Oh, Yildiz, another good shout. I don't think Juventus will want to sell him, but a very good player. Right, so the poll is still up, by the way, for Alexis McAllister. We're asking, how much is he worth? With 2 years to go on his deal this summer, if Liverpool were to look to cash in, would they get 40 million, 50 million, 60 million or 70 million plus for Alexis McAllister? This from Footy Insider. They said Liverpool will be looking to make around £100 million profit on player sales to boost their summer transfer budget. And initially I thought, where the fuck are we getting £100 million from? But I guess if you're looking at McAllister in the 50 to 60 bracket, and maybe you sold Jones, Chiesa, Gomez, I guess you could probably get up to that 100 million figure relatively quickly. What's the Alonso decision? So Mohammedan, without me going into a big long spiel about it, basically there's some conflicting in the confliction in the. Ugh. There's conflicting reports. Sorry, dude, I'm making a word salad out of that. Still, lots of stuff, like you said, coming out in the UK side, say they're sticking with him, they're sticking with him, they're sticking with him. But when I do dig a little bit deeper, and then you see the post from the ITK Space account saying that Alonso believes that he's getting the job, and Alonso believes that these communications are just waiting for the sign off from John W. Henry, that got me digging a little bit deeper. And like I've said, I'm again seeing a difference in what I'm hearing from the European side of this versus what I'm seeing on the UK side of it. So I'm mentally preparing for Slot to stay. But I don't think yet I can say with a clean conscience that there's no hope for Alonso. But we're going to find out soon. Because Chelsea are going to start sniffing around. You know, if Pep Guardiola wins the league, I actually think, personally, there's more chance he leaves. Because then he's leaving with at least a double, maybe a treble. Not the treble before United fans jump in, but a treble. So I think he's more likely to go out on that then, and maybe then look for a new coach. Where if Maresca doesn't get the job, Alonso's name will come around there. Is Joshua Abe as good as gone? Yes. Yes. Certainly what I've been led to believe, yes. And you seen the post from his Instagram the other day. I think he was at the Etihad for the game against Arsenal. I do think he's gone, unfortunately. Jaden, when Champions League is secured, give Armin and under-21 players a game. I'd love to see Armin Pecci. Yeah, looked like a very good young goalkeeper from, was it Academica or Pume? One of the sides in Hungary. Sorry, I can't remember the name of the team he came in from. But he looks like a good keeper. And yeah, fully with you on that. I guess the only downside is maybe if we still have, let's say, United or Villa in our sights, you do want to make sure that you can push up that extra league position if possible. And certainly if you're on a slot, you're going to want to, because it would strengthen your hand with, trying to keep your job. Grim Reaper said, Craig, the poor thing about the sell to buy is that we always sell more than we buy, leaving ourselves short. I hope Arne thinks this through and focuses on squad depth, not flashy headline talents. I agree. We need to bring in 2 more players than we sell, minimum. I think in midfield we have the scope numerically to see 2 out, 2 in. I think it's more a profile situation in the middle of the park rather than a lack of depth. I just don't think we have the right type of midfielders. I still can't believe the Costa situation. Honestly, I find that so disheartening. That a player who was 3rd choice and shipped out to Roma and didn't really get much of a great season there is somehow now going to be good enough if Milos Kerkez is out for a few months. That just to me again feels like papering over the cracks rather than going out there to make the best decision. And then what happens in a year's time? We're still going to lose Costas and have to bring in another left back anyway. So why not tear off the band-aid now, try and get a few million quid and bring in another left back? Arne said he wanted a smaller squad. I know, Donaldinho, mate. The irony of some of this stuff isn't lost on me, bro. I promise you. He did, and then complains about it and the injuries. But the biggest gripe about Slot is not. It's not even that. It's that he has a squad that he is intentionally not utilising fully. How many games have we looked at the bench and asked how many of these guys are actually going to come in? Not. I'm talking about bringing in players at 90 minutes to just rest a few players' legs. I mean, to change games. I don't think he looks at that bench and feels much reassurance in that regard. Reform to when Costas went out on loan, I knew they intended to do this. It really has wound me up, mate. It really has wound me up that this is happening. Because I just don't know how you sell this as anything other than cheapness. Yeah. So we have a pecking order of Kerkez, Robertson, Costas. You ship out number 3 on the list. Number 2 on the list moves on because his contract's up. And then number 3 on the list is suddenly good enough. It just does not make sense to me at all, other than cheapness. Colin said, would you take back Nico and Wilson for cover? Well, Harry Wilson, from what I can gather, is going to go to Aston Villa. 100 grand a week contract. Nico Williams, I would absolutely take back. Yes, I take back Nico Williams if we could get him in from Forest. I think that would be a brilliant bit of business. No idea what his situation is. Don't know his contract situation. Don't know a number. Don't know if Forest would have any interest. Don't know if Williams would have any interest. But I would. Yeah, I think that would be brilliant. So people asking about the Alonso news. I don't think that I said there was any news. I said there was a decision incoming. And the decision is that Alonso seemingly is getting a bit impatient about the uncertainty. Because on the English side of it, all the reports say they're sticking with Slot, they're sticking with Slot. But from the German side of it, and I think it's more than a handful of people, they still believe that Alonso is the man for the job. But he's going to want some certainty about that at some point. And I think either a lot of people are going to look really stupid in the media, or we're going to be absolutely at the end of our tether as fans, stuck with Slot for another year. But something this summer is going to cause a lot of upheaval at the club and the fan base. And like I've said, all I'm going to do is continuously have my say, but I'm not spending another penny on Liverpool Football Club, on jerseys, on memberships, on all red, on anything until Slot's gone. Not a fucking cent, because I don't believe it. Now, if I'm wrong and he turns it round, I won't be hard to find. I'll be on here saying, wow, wasn't I wrong about that? And I don't think I'll be on my own to admit that if he turns it round. But I just, I don't want to be financially and emotionally invested in a club that is sticking two fingers up at us. Did Ornstein get the Chelsea Rosenior situation wrong? Yeah. So on that, here's the quote from Ornstein a few days back, maybe about 9 or 10 days back, to be fair, on the situation. He said, to my knowledge, they don't intend to review the coaching position until at the earliest the summer of 2027. Not 2026, 2027. This was posted by CFC Daily. Said David Ornstein on NBC USA on Lemur Senior. To my knowledge, they don't intend to review the coaching position until at the earliest summer of 2027. At the end of his first full season, which was the case for Pochettino and Maresca as well. So they reckon that he reckoned that they didn't give him the full season this season because of Maresca and whatnot, and that he was going to get next year as a full year. So this is what I keep saying. I've no doubt that people are briefed things by football clubs. But it doesn't mean that because David Ornstein wears a shirt and tie and looks smart, doesn't mean we have to believe it. Everybody has an agenda in this. Clubs have an agenda to push their narratives. Journalists have an agenda to stay in with clubs and keep getting that information, even though 50% of it or so might be leading them up the garden path. Agents have an agenda to push their players in certain directions. So you just got to, as bad as it sounds, just be a cynical motherfucker when you're looking at this stuff and realise that it's all smoke and mirrors. Most of football, the business side of it, is grimy, murky, underhanded bullshit. So, like I said, I think journalists end up looking silly a lot of the time because they kind of have to play this game. But I look at where they're getting their information from. And I don't know where Ornstein gets his Chelsea information from. I haven't got a clue. But we all have a fair idea where he gets his Liverpool information from. Keane said Ornstein's always been incredibly reliable. Last few weeks he's fallen off a cliff around our news. The very least from what I've seen. Again, I've said this to you guys before. From speaking with journalists, they say, and maybe I don't want to use names because I think it's unfair to throw them under the bus, But I've spoken to journalists who've said you do get told things by clubs that you have to make a decision. Do you print it? If you don't really believe it, but you are getting it from a legitimate source that you can say, yep, this club, this guy told me this. So you know that you've been told it, but it doesn't mean you have to believe it. So there's a lot of credibility issues with what journalists are pushing forward for me and what the reasons they're doing it is. So I've no doubt Ornstein is being honest when he said he's been told these things. I'm not calling him a dishonest guy, but I do think sometimes, do they reflect enough to say, well, 50% of this shit that they've told me's ended up being wrong? Like, I don't know at this point how James Pearce doesn't feel a bit embarrassed about the whole Mamardashvili stuff and a few other things that he's been so wrong about at times where we've all known that wasn't the case, but still trots out this stuff. I don't know. Couldn't be me, because I'd be straight on the blower to the person that gave me the bullshit information saying, what the fuck is this? You've thrown me under the bus. Do you think a striker is needed since Hecky's injury? I just don't see how you make the argument to buy one and not cause yourself a problem. Like, do we need an extra player in that position? Well, hypothetically, yes. But it's a 5-month problem, and you don't solve a 5-month problem with a 6-year contract. So I struggle to justify bringing in another striker. That's why I keep talking about Jared Bowen, because I think if you brought in Jared Bowen and, like, let's say Diamonde, I think you get the versatility of a Bowen who can almost do like a Gakpo to some extent, in that he could play central if you needed him to give rest to Isak. Yeah, so I wouldn't bring one in personally, and if I was a sporting director, I wouldn't be looking to bring one in, because it's just causing yourself a headache, excuse me, down the line, and it's a relatively short-term problem. If Spurs go down, would you take any of their players? I'd be tempted with Archie Gray and Van de Ven. Probably the two you've listed, James, are probably the two that I'd have my own interest in as well. Archie Gray be brilliant. Van de Ven, look, I just don't know if we need another centre-back at this moment in time, but I wouldn't say no. If the club announced they were signing Van de Ven, I wouldn't be upset about it. But Archie Gray be a great bit of business. Right, where are we at with the poll? So, we have... it's pretty one-sided. So, nearly 1,200 votes on the poll, and we asked, how much is Alexis McAllister worth? So, I think I agree with the answer. The most voted for answer was 60 million. And I think I'm right there in that. I said to you guys a while ago, 60, 65. Sounds about right to me. So, 38% of people said £60 million. 70 million plus was 25%, also 25% for 50 million and 12% for 40 million. Light 97 said, I don't think we will, but another striker, but probably utilise Wirtz as a false 9 in games where strikers need a rest. I agree with that, yeah. Or you can put Gakpo in there. Or let's say you did bring in another winger who could play through the centre. I agree. You want some versatile players in any squad that can play multiple positions, but what I hope we don't see next season, come what may, whoever's in charge, whatever's going on, I just don't want to see us playing people out of position again. I don't want to see midfielders having to play right back because we don't have enough cover. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see midfielders playing centre back. Yeah, that's not how you challenge across every competition. For me, Lewis Hall is the best choice for left back. So the reason I would disagree with you on Lewis Hall is because he'd have to play. If we hadn't signed Milos Kerkez, I would have no issues with Lewis Hall. But I cannot see how you could sell that to him and also have Kerkez at the club, because they're both two young, very good left backs, and either one of them, brilliant. I just don't think you can make that pitch to him or to his agent, because he's not coming in to be number one when Kerkez is there. So, or then you're disappointing Kerkez, who isn't going to be number one, and that was sold to him. So, great player, I just don't see how he could make the pitch. Thanks for answering, love from Dallas. Oh, no need to thank me. It's a pleasure, and thank you for being here with us. Appreciate your support and your input. Macca's value will show more after the World Cup, or will? I hope you're right, Colin. Yeah. I hope you're right. If he has a good World Cup, that certainly will do no harm with regards to his price tag. Yeah, agree with you on that, mate. Would you take Livramento from Newcastle? He's versatile and can play right back. Yes. Unfortunately, Manchester City are worth keeping. I don't know if they're still interested in Tino Livramento, but they were interested for the longest time. But yeah, Tino Livramento, absolutely, without a doubt. Here's an interesting one for you. It seems as if Eddie Howe's getting his marching orders this summer. Alan Shearer believes so, and many others. Where do we reckon Eddie Howe goes? Because instinctively, I was looking at United in my head. But if they're going to stay with Michael Carrick, where do we think Eddie Howe goes? Because obviously he's not going to the English national team yet because Tuchel's in there. So where does he end up? It'll be an interesting one. Is he worth a show for the Chelsea job, maybe? And also, Chelsea didn't have to pay the reported 24 million to sack Senior because apparently there was a break clause in the contract. That means I think it cost them 4 million to sack him. Back to Bournemouth, maybe. No, they've already signed their coach, haven't they? Bournemouth not just bring in what's his face, the former Dortmund coach, Rose. Is he not gone there? Have I got mixed up again? Chelsea, I could see. Look, if I'm Chelsea, I'm certainly considering Eddie Howe. Craig, do you think the senior players are noticing a sinking ship and whether eagerly want to get out? I do, Damon. Yeah, I do, and also, I also think, from Michael Edwards' point of view, there's less undermining then and less seniority in that dressing room against the manager. So yeah, I think you're probably on the right track there. Craig, if the only options were Glasner or Iriola, who would you pick? Iriola, without a shot of a doubt. I think Glasner's a good coach, but he's not going to play the way we want to play. It would be like a similar idea to Spurs bringing in Thomas Frank, who's a very good coach, but the way Spurs fans want football played, Thomas Frank isn't that guy. Same with Oliver Glasner. The way Liverpool want football played, I don't think Oliver Glasner is the guy, but a really, really good coach. So Iriola of those two, but I have other concerns about Iriola outside of the coaching side of it. Is he a big enough personality to handle everything that comes along with being manager of a club like Liverpool? If we get Gordon, I think it's a good choice. He can play left and right wing and even striker. Well, the club most moving towards Anthony Gordon at the minute is Bayern Munich. Skater Hardy said the senior players have all had bust-ups with Slot and all of those being mentioned as leaving or are leaving. The players don't want Slot, club does, and Slot and the players want out. I agree. See, this is what I don't get. Players seemingly, at least they're split on the manager. Fans don't want the manager. I don't understand this insistence on ignoring everything. I just hope that all this is bluster and that they are the cold, hard decision makers we're so often being led to believe they're supposed to be. Because if they are, they'll ruthlessly say, thanks, but enough is enough in the summer. Appreciate what you've done. Thank you for the league title. But, we're going to part ways now. That's the sensible play. And doubling down on it because of your own hubris or unwillingness to admit that you shit the bed making the appointment, I just don't think it's the right way. And especially if these people that are making that decision aren't going to be here themselves in a year, it doesn't exactly seem like joined up thinking to me. I know this season is basically wrapped up, but I'm excited and sad for the transfer window. I think our team is going to look very different next season. Yeah, I don't really know what to expect with regards to the transfer window. Profile of player wise, like I don't expect us to be breaking British transfer records again. Nor do I think that you need to do that. I think a lot of the heavy lifting financially was probably done last year, and I wouldn't be against us, doing some shopping in the 30 to 60 million pound bracket and getting some players in there. Because for me, this summer is more about getting the right type of players in, and by that I mean personality, determination, stuff like robustness. That would be a word that would be key this summer for me. In recruitment, is looking at players who can take the physicality. Paul Diamond said the football we play is a snooze fest. I actually hate slot ball. I think by even saying slot ball, we're giving it credence that there is some understanding of what it is. Like, I don't know what the fuck he's doing. So to even say slot ball, it feels like that there's a plan there that maybe we're not seeing. I don't see a plan. I just see balls being moved side to side and then long diagonal balls and hoping to win second balls and duels. I don't really see a pattern or a methodology of the way he's wanting to play. Premier Traveller said, Craigie, one positive in recent weeks, Georgie's looking more comfortable in goal. Yeah, but at the same time, it's wound me up a little bit that people are starting in the journalistic side to have a populist distribution, as if that was a strength of his when we bought him. Like, everybody knew when we signed Georgie Marmardashvili that he's not going to be Alisson Becker with the ball at his feet. So to expect that of him now, or to see James Pearce or others kind of knocking that side of his game, I don't think that's his game anyway. No, he's brought in to be a shot stopper, a physical presence, command his area. So I'd never expected him to be this quarterback of a goalkeeper who pings 40, 50-yard diagonal passes straight onto the heads of people. That was never his game. So why are we suddenly expecting it to be his game now? Craig, do you have some news on Slot? Is Xabi coming or staying? I don't know. There's conflicting things. English side, all wholeheartedly, Slot is staying. European side, German side, people close in and around the Alonso camp, or at least the agencies, saying he believes he's still right there in the mix and could be the guy. So truth is, I don't know at this point, and I'm just trying to prepare for every eventuality, or until I get something more concrete. What I said to you guys a few weeks ago was generally what I heard, that they were trending towards getting rid of Slot and Alonso was being looked at. And I don't know of anything really changing from that other than more of a narrative that they want to keep Slot being pushed into the media. But when I really push back on that with people today, they still believe that ultimately FSG and these people are number people, and they will see that the numbers don't add up, and that when they run into the data and they look at it, that it won't paint a positive picture for Arna. And that's what I'm kind of hoping for as well. Do you think there's anything Slot could do in the first 5 games to convince us he deserves more time? I would try to paint that a different way. I would say, let's see how he finishes the last 5 games. Because what you want to see as the season goes on, even a season like this that hasn't been at the standards we'd want, is progression and understanding. And I've not seen that come into the team yet. So I do expect we'll be better next season, whoever's in charge, because of a few things like players coming back, maybe the style of football in the Prem getting somewhat back to being a bit more attack-minded against the defensive physical stuff this year. So yeah, no, I don't think the first 5 games would do anything for me, because this isn't just this season for me. This is from March last season up to now. And I've still not seen progression. And I'm not seeing us get better or look like we have an understanding of the way he wants to play. And the easiest way I keep pushing back on this is, give me 3 sentences on Liverpool's play. Give me 3 sentences that gives our identity. And nobody can do it. The best you're going to have is side-to-side football, possession for possession's sake. That's it. And shooting from distance and having them blocked and going wide. That's it. There's no high press. There's no extreme fitness levels. Like I said earlier on, the numbers came out earlier on about the teams and the distance they cover in games this season. And Liverpool are, what did I say? We were 17th or 18th on this list. So Liverpool are 18th with distance covered per game, which is pathetic, quite frankly. Nope, he failed against PSG, who played the kind of football and said he went for the low block. And that itself is a disgrace. You're right. And he got away with that way too lightly. That for a man that says he has footballing principles that he won't bend, in the 2 games against PSG, he went with systems and personnel that we haven't played with or have had very limited time with. But you didn't see PSG do that. You didn't see Luis Enrique change his philosophies. He played the way they play, to their strengths, and won both games. Arna shit the bed on both of them. Complains about low blocks, said football shouldn't be played this way. He wouldn't do it. They're against his footballing principles. Then goes and plays with a pathetic low block against PSG. Like I said, spoofer, waffler, full of shit. They're the only things I can keep saying. Because you can't keep telling the world something, but the evidence keeps pointing to the contrary. If you have a footballing philosophy, you'll see it shine through. We're not seeing it. Right, ladies and gents, I'm going to say goodnight to you. I will see you guys tomorrow. We're recording a podcast, so that'll be out tomorrow night on Spotify. Make sure you do check it out. Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts. We'll have a few clips of it doing the rounds as well. I'll be here at about 4:30 with a news video, or about 4 o'clock actually. Connor will be here in the morning. And yeah, appreciate you all so much. It's been a really enjoyable stream tonight. Thank you for giving up 2 hours of your time to come and have a chat with me. 1994 Sports Fanatic said the difference between us and Chelsea is that Chelsea is willing to pay the 24 million. They only had to pay 4 million to sack him because of a clause. There was a break clause in his deal. But your point still stands. They're willing to do what needs to be done when it's not working. Right, folks, appreciate you as always. Do hit that subscribe button for me before you head off. Don't forget to drop a like on the stream and have yourselves a wonderful night. We'll see you tomorrow. Much